Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Kisper now driving and rejected, and Baylor's on a break. Smart move here, little delay. Wagler, splash, killer.
The Sikkim 365 Radio Friday show is brought to you by Bird Culchin Ford.
Looking for a shot. There it is. It is Bedney. Touchdown.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Mitchell rattles out. Tap back. It goes to Meyer. They came in and out of the hands of Gorham.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Nice little dive to the rim. Oh, wow. Chachua.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go. Man, what a beautiful day in Central Texas. The weather is just basically flawless. It's like a beautiful early spring or an early fall. And in Texas, it could be, 75 one day, and a day or two later it could be 37, windy and rainy. The national champion, Baylor men's basketball team, will debut tonight. They'll defend their title. They open up with Incarnate Word about 6:45 tonight at the Farrell Center. They're going to unveil the national championship banner, and they will also hand out the national championship rings. They play Incarnate Word today or tonight at the Farrell Center, and it's probably something. We're going to hear Lincoln Riley on Caleb Williams and a couple of other things and look at some of the better college games this weekend and more. It's something that I wonder if anyone ever thought would happen. We know the national championship history of the women's program, and Paul, it was always, it's hard. The women you have those 8 to 10 teams, maybe less. In basketball, it is hard.
It is very, very hard. And look, it's hard for Duke. It's hard for Kentucky. It's hard for the blue blood, your teams who have done it multiple times. But it's really hard to build it, and you have to win so many games on the way there to get to that national championship banner. You can't have a bad day and then come back from it once the tournament starts, which is why it's the greatest postseason in sports. It is. It's so exciting and it's so different. And we've talked about it so much. And Scott Drew and the story that I can't wait for people to see when the documentary drops later next year and see the story of it, because it's not a common story what Scott Drew did here at Baylor. He could have honestly, after the first couple times he got them to the NCAA tournament, just used this as a stepping stone and go, look what I did there. Now, please take me to a place that loves basketball more, or it doesn't have as many problems in the past, that I'm just going to move on and I'm going to do that. But no, he made this his own and made it a beacon of college basketball. I think that's the most impressive thing about it.
Yeah, Scott Drew can't coach. That's what I was told for years and years by a lot of basketball geniuses and even basketball media geniuses. Yeah, he can't coach, right? But yeah, tonight they're raising the banners. And I think it's great. I think it'll probably be, a great crowd out there. And I think Scott Drew believed, although I have to imagine for as positive as he is, there had to be times, throughout where he's like, can I even really believe all the, you know what I mean? Like there's like the belief that you have to have, Scott Drew, to take it where it was to where it is and all the points in between and never give up and keep just grinding. Like that's why he won a national championship. Not because he got some fancy recruit, not because of some arena, not because of really anything other than just keeping your head down, taking a hell of a lot of bullets along the way for a lot of years, and still just going, you know what? I know what I'm doing, and I'm believing myself and the people around me, and that's what he did. And I think it's a testament. It used to be where the first thing in mind with Scott Drew was Scott Drew can't coach, just like the meme or whatever. And then, of course, there was the scandal for the longest time, even though that's, years and years and years past at this point. But now it's, oh, yeah, he's one of the best basketball coaches in the country, and that's the way that it should be. So big night for Baylor men's basketball. Nice win by the women, Nikki Collin and company as well. Didn't have to get the skin of their teeth at this time like they did against Texas State. Got to just free and clear win one pretty easily, so that was good to see. So, yeah, it's basketball season, but it's also football season still, and there is one giant game tomorrow at McLaren Stadium.
Yes, there is, and we're going to get to that in just a second. Biscuits and Gravy, also now B&G, kind of like a rapper on our chat room, wearing my Ode to Joy shirt. Good for you. Again, tonight, 6:45, they unveil the national championship banner, and also the rings are presented. Here's a graphic. Armstrong, do you have the one about the Associated Press men's basketball poll? This is kind of random, but I did see David K. put this up. And what David K. said is Baylor is starting the year ranked number 8 in the country in men's basketball. That means that every single spot from 1 to 25, they have been 1, and they have been every number up through 25. They had never been 8, and they start the year at number 8. So every single 1 through 25, they have now been ranked. That's men's basketball. That is tonight. Now, Baylor and Oklahoma. And I by the way, Donnie Hand on the chat room, I'm going to put up a couple of the press release from the NCAA. There you go, the AP Top 25 poll. Every one of those numbers, Baylor's been ranked at least once at some point. And they've been ranked, like, some of those numbers many times. But now with number 8, which came out October the 18th, they have been ranked every one of those numbers at least once. And look at when all that happened. It all started, the earliest of all of that was like 2015, something like that. And it's all happened in the last 6 years. Now, Baylor and Oklahoma. Tomorrow, Baylor has a chance, despite the loss in Fort Worth, they have a chance to jump right smack in the middle of that Big 12 championship game. They have beaten Iowa State. They lost to Oklahoma State, but if they can win tomorrow, and it won't be easy, and they may not, they are right back in it. Caleb Williams is someone I look forward to watching in person. I love watching Oklahoma and Baylor. They've put on some pretty classic games over the years. Paul Catalina, your thoughts about containing Caleb Williams. And we're going to hear from Lincoln Riley on the Baylor defense and a couple of other things in a moment.
Well, given if you go back to the very first game of the season, Baylor's defense has 2 really big weaknesses, which is deep passes and containing quarterbacks who get kind of wild outside the pocket, and Caleb Williams can do both those things. And based on what we saw Chandler Morris do last week, I think just in the immediacy of it, I'm a little bit concerned about their ability to stop Caleb Williams. Now, Baylor has in the games where they've done things wrong, whether they won or lost, they've always managed to correct their mistakes a week later, and that's why they haven't had a losing streak all year, and they only have 2 losses. But I am concerned about Caleb Williams doing what Chandler Morris did last week, maybe not on the same scale that it happened at 461 yards, but he can do that, and he's done it to a couple teams already this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's just looking at the box score or something or the stats from TCU and going like, oh, man, Oklahoma's going to do that. Well, they didn't watch the game. Yeah, I mean, you have every reason to believe that you can hit deep shots downfield. A lot of those are bang-bang plays. A lot of them are not just simply a Baylor guy is not there or he's super bad position. It's Chandler Morris made great throws, like great throws. I mean, like an inch to the right, and it's an interception. I mean, surgical throws. And
perfect word.
Caleb Williams can do that, but Is he going to do that regularly tomorrow? If he is, then yeah, they're in trouble. If he makes passes where even if you've got two guys covering inches away and you fit it in the one spot that it can go, then yeah, like what are you supposed to do about that? And I think a lot of last week was, what are you supposed to do about that? Yeah. And, I think this defense is going to have a huge bounce-back effort. I don't think that if Jalen Petrie or Terrell Bernard get in the background, they're going to let Caleb Williams get free, or they can't let Caleb Williams get free the way they let Chandler Morris get free on one particular huge play last week. I mean, that's the thing, is when they get to him, and I do think they'll be able to get to him at times, they're going to have to, disrupt him or bring him down. They cannot let him spin out, throw a, third and long, first down pass and keep the chains moving, because that's what they did last week. I mean, I think it's as simple as just cleaning up your own technique and execution as much as it is anything that Caleb Williams or Chandler Morris or whoever does. There's certainly some things the TCU offense did to confuse Baylor probably in some ways, or it's a look they didn't expect, or what have you. I mean, I'm sure TCU did something offensively that was not on film, but mostly it was execution. I mean, that's what it was. So I expect a huge effort. They've heard all week about how poorly they played last week and how big of a loss that was. So I expect a great effort. But, yeah, with Caleb Williams, I mean, there's some things he's going to do that you can't really do anything about, but there's other times when you're going to have an opportunity, and the difference in the game is going to be, do you make it the most of that opportunity, or do you let him slip through your fingers?
He is a freshman. He is unbelievably good, but at the same time, maybe he's not human. I don't know. We've been told he's Superman, and
That's his
have
nickname.
seen that before, which is great, a nickname. Now, so Lincoln Riley was able to meet with the media. Remember, earlier in the week he didn't. He also missed not only that, but also a TV show with Gabe Eichert. And basically it was for personal reasons. Whatever those are, I hope it's health-wise, everything is fine. I don't know that. And
well, he said that if people knew, they'd be really bored.
Yeah, they would be very bored.
Yeah.
His mom called him because she was a little bit. So he met with the media yesterday evening. In fact, John Hoover's the one that sent me this. Here's a question about Caleb Williams against Baylor's defense, despite what happened with TCU. There are two of these, right, Paul? Are they separate? Here's one about Caleb Williams facing the Baylor defense and Oklahoma head coach Lincoln Riley.
I think he's just trying to improve, and we're just trying to improve and get him more comfortable with running our system. I mean, our belief is if we run our system at a high level, then you don't get as concerned with the guys on the other sideline. We get that we're going to play some good defenses coming up, but we're pretty good offense too. And when we play to our standard and when we're playing at a high level, we've got a group that can be tough to stop. So that's been a little bit more of our focus overall, and our focus with him is just continuing to get better at us. Try to understand some of the different challenges you're going to face every week, but more for us is be better at running OU's offense and be better at doing your job. And I think if he can continue to do that with these new challenges, new things schematically that he'll see going forward, he'll continue to improve. But he's a good player. So, I mean, he's, like I said, there's some defenses that do some things that give you trouble and you've got to work through, but he's going to give some people some trouble too.
All right. Now, there was a follow-up question from another reporter about Caleb Williams. And there was a great question from Barry Trammell about Baylor and what they've been able to do with different coaching hires the last decade. And we'll have that for you in a moment. But this is a question about Caleb Williams and handling all of the hype and how he has handled it according to Lincoln Riley.
I think he's handling it fine. I mean, it's, we try to really spend a lot of time here on, really focusing in on the things that are important and try not to spend a whole lot of time on the things that aren't. And, and so we visited some. I watch him and, watch how he's handling things, watch how he's practicing, how he's doing in school. I mean, again, the things that really matter. And, I mean, he's continuing to just be himself and come to work and practice hard every day, get coached hard every day, and go back home and sleep and get up and do it again. So, I mean, it's kind of been business as normal here. So, that's we as a program, obviously, as you said, aren't new to that. I get that Caleb's new, but I think he's, we kind of this whole team's attitude towards whether it's an individual or team stuff right now and stuff on the outside about the team. You just show up on Saturday and take care of business. All that other stuff takes care of itself. And that's been the focus of us with every individual player, and I would say with our program as a whole right now.
All right, that's Lincoln Riley. A couple of notes. Paul, we don't have the one yet about Baylor.
No,
we'll have that in a minute. It's a really good answer, but a great question from Barry Trammell, who we've had on from the Daily Oklahoman, about his thoughts about how Baylor has rebuilt 3 times, from Art Briles to Matt Rule to Dave Aranda. We'll have that for you as well. One other quick note. Armstrong, when you get a second, Zach Evans, who's the TCU running back, the spectacular high school player out of North Shore, who ended up playing for TCU, and he's been hit and miss because of injuries, and there's also been speculation around whether or not he's all in, and during this time in transition with Gary Patterson. So we know that TCU is looking for a head football coach. There has been speculation that Zach Evans, of course, I don't know if anyone's confirmed this or not, that he was looking at also transferring. Maybe the decision by Gary Patterson or with Gary Patterson changed that. I don't know if that was even a part of it. Here is Zach Evans' tweet from earlier today. We want Deion Sanders. That's the TCU running back. Now, some of the responses, Armstrong, thank you very much. Some of the responses from that were, wait a minute, you won't even be here.
Exactly, right. Exactly. He's not going to be there. If anything, he'd be there for one single season. So, no, you're not making your head coaching choice based off who the guy who's going to be there for less than a year's time is wanting for. But, hey, I think players, it's not a bad thing if they want to have input, but I also know if Baylor went by, coaching hires that the players wanted, results would probably have been a lot different the last few years, because I don't think players are necessarily the best choices of who the head coach should be. They might have their favorites. They might have their guys who are good and whatnot, but I don't know that they're necessarily the best choices based on the coaching searches and kind of the candidates players seem to rally around. But, yeah, that's interesting. Deion, I feel like the 4 Star Telegrams promoted Deion for the TCU job as much as anybody. Like Drew Davison, I see – like the last week, it's been Deion's interest and things like that whenever I've seen a tweet from him. So, there's something there, whether it's a PR type of deal or what. There is some smoke for Deion and TCU, and it's interesting that Zach Evans has that opinion. But, yeah, like you said, he's not going to be there beyond next year, so I don't know if that really means much.
The last thing you should ever do on any level of sports is let the players pick the coach. It very rarely works.
Doesn't LeBron?
Yeah, and okay, you've given me one example of how it's kind of worked out, but it doesn't work out all the time, because then eventually LeBron gets tired of that guy, because that guy's like, I'm tired of LeBron telling me what to do, aren't I the head coach? And then in reality, he has to look himself in the mirror and go, no, I'm not, I'm half a man, because LeBron tells me everything I have to do. So I don't think it's ever a good idea.
Okay.
And even if it worked out for a title, I guess it's a good idea then, but in college football, you're not trying to do good for 1 year, you're trying to do good for 20.
From Sooner J, when someone mentioned Deion to Blake, but Deion is in the Aflac commercials with Saban, so he has to be good. So we appreciate that. Here's one from Donnie Hand.
Transitive, just rubbed off on you like that, where you got a little Saban magic. That'd be great.
The only good thing that would come from Deion is media attention for the conference, which we really need. And then nighttime, I fully agree, keep the players out of the coaching hires, but that is Zach Evans. Now, also, I'm not sure if you saw this. This is from Riley Gates. This is a quote, and again, Armstrong, I'm putting you on the spot a lot. I know you're running the mothership by yourself today, because Pearson, after 1 day as an intern, left us. Is that right, Paul? Is that what he did?
He apparently has to go prepare for the bear pit.
How long does it take to get your clothes on?
I don't think you really realize. I think he might be preparing doing.
Oh, okay. And then Jack and also Hayden have basically quit on us as well. So Armstrong, there was a quote that I put up. It's in red about Gary Patterson in a story with 247 Sports. I'm not sure if you read this or not, but from Riley Gates, former TCU coach Gary Patterson reportedly, according to the Fort Worth Star Telegram, reportedly said he was untouchable. The quote was this: "I know what you're trying to do," Patterson said to his team at a practice in October. According to the Fort Worth Star Telegram, "They're not going to fire me. They're going to fire the assistant coaches. I'm untouchable."
Well, I don't know if he really said that, but I totally believe that he did. I would absolutely believe that he would say something like that. Yes, 100%. If he actually did or not, I don't know, but I totally believe that he would. Yes.
Why wasn't that reported at the time? You would wonder. And again,
And why does it even matter now? Like, I mean, like, you know, if he did say that and he was the head coach at the time, like a week after he's gone is kind of like, okay, so what? If
that's what happened.
No, I know, but
finding reasons what happened, what undermined a guy that you thought might have been untouchable.
Right, but if it had come out at the time, I think that's a much better story than, hey, you know, a week after the fact, Gary Patterson said this, and then he was fired. Haha.
Yeah.
But, you know, Patterson says he's untouchable, and then a day later he gets fired. That would have been something. But yeah, again, I'm not surprised at all that he said that. He strikes me 100% as somebody who would believe that they were untouchable at TCU, and probably a lot of other coaches who were in his position probably would have felt that way too. It was about as secure as you could get, but not as secure as he thought, obviously.
I think it gives a little more context to how this went 0 to 60 so fast.
No, that might be,
because if – you know, and we had talked to you and the three of us had talked about it privately, and then even on the show a little bit about, you know, Gary Patterson's got to start thinking about what he's doing, and TCU's got to think about what is he really bringing to the school. And then 2 weeks after or maybe a week after we had that conversation, he was fired. And our kind of belief was like, well, maybe not this year because there's never ever been any heat on Gary Patterson. And then it just went, you know, 0. I mean, it went all the way hot in a week and a half or 2 weeks on Gary Patterson. And if he's walking around practice going, I'm untouchable, then if I'm Jeremiah Donati, I'm like, no. I'll touch the crap out of you.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's this kind of rapid fire with hearing from Lincoln Riley, Baylor men's basketball, the banner being released tonight or being shown tonight, the rings as well. The comment or the tweet from Zach Evans, and then also the Gary Patterson story. Last night, North Carolina Pitt went overtime. Kenny Pickett, he wasn't great, but he was good enough. He threw a pick late in the game that allowed North Carolina to tie the game, go into overtime, but then he won the game with the 11-yard touchdown, 346 yards, 25 of 43, I think, passing, 3 touchdowns, and North Carolina and Pitt went overtime, Pitt winning 30-23. Cincinnati and USF, South Florida, play tonight in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good for Cincinnati to get a nice convincing win, since people are monitoring their efforts so closely now. And, if they could go out and get a nice blowout win, I'm not sure, how much that really ramps them up, but it certainly is a lot better than the alternative where they squeak by and then, you hear more piling on of, well, look, they're barely winning these games on a bad schedule. I mean, because that's really what you're doing now when you go out there. You're either going to, blow them out and win convincingly, or you barely win, and then people criticize it even though it's another win. So, yeah, that'd be great to watch Cincy. They should take care of business, I would think. And then that was a good game last night. Pickett's been one of the better stories in college football, and North Carolina's been one of the more disappointing stories given the
really have.
preseason hype. I mean, in the preseason, you'd hear North Carolina top 10, this and that, and I feel like about 2 weeks after the season started, the only reason I hear about North Carolina is because I'm scrolling through box scores, and I see their game. But outside of that, yeah, that preseason hype fizzled out really quickly. But
right,
almost a nice win last night.
Cincinnati and South Florida, and Cincinnati they need to go out and win. They need to put up 35 to 50 points. I don't know if they may not score 27, but they do need to go out and emphatically beat somebody. And South Florida, not very good, and a team that might be also, who knows, as things pass by, possibly a part of anything Chapter 2. At least that's what I'm being told when it comes to the Big 12. Now, a lot of things to get to. Oklahoma and Baylor. The other game we're going to feature Penn State with Greg Pickle. He covers Penn State for On3.com. They play Michigan. Think about Penn State. They have wins against Auburn and Wisconsin, but they also have 2 losses to ranked teams, about to play Michigan, and they have the bad loss to Illinois. We'll talk with him. And I did ask him about John Lovett and the running game. Greg, you brought that up.
What running game? They don't have one.
That's what I did.
That's the thing with Penn State. They cannot run the football to save their life, and it's just not going to change in the last month of the season. It's just one of those deals that they're going to have to get health and get a better O-line and get players and do all those things you have to do to revamp that unit. But, yeah, it's been atrocious this year, and I don't have a great feeling for Penn State going into this game because Michigan's got a really good defense and secondary, and you can't run the football. I mean, I know you've been able to win games with Sean Clifford going out there and throwing it 40-plus times, but against Michigan, that just doesn't seem like a great recipe for success because they're pretty good back there.
Well, they don't allow – Michigan doesn't give up too much on the ground. You're right, yeah.
No, they don't – I mean – no, what I'm saying is they've got a really good defense and defensive backs.
Yeah,
so if you're Penn State, they're not going to run the ball regardless.
No.
They haven't run the ball against far lesser teams. They're not going to suddenly run it against Michigan. So my point is, let's just go ahead and pretend the run game doesn't exist because it doesn't. So basically your plan is that Sean Clifford has to throw it 40-plus times. That's how you've won some games. How is he going to do that and be successful against Michigan? That's what I'm saying.
He is throwing the ball. You're right. He's having to throw it 50 times a game.
I want to say they haven't given up a receiving touchdown this year.
Michigan?
So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, like, how is a team that's only going to throw the ball 40-plus times going to beat a team that's really good against the pass? Like, what in that matchup makes you I guess you just think Dotson is going to be able to get free and clear and get open, and, it's worked for them at times, but against Michigan, I'm just saying I don't see that being as a real winning formula, just chunking the ball around.
No, and look, Jahan Dotson is good enough to where maybe he's the guy who breaks Michigan's streak, but he's not going to do it 4 times, right? I mean, he might get one. You would think if you just look at the percentages or
Washington or someone like that. I mean, they've got other receivers, but yeah, he's the star. He's the stud. But yeah, I mean, are they gonna go for 300+ yards receiving and 4 touchdowns to win that game? Like that, it sounds like that's what they're gonna have to do. And that's what I'm saying. I just don't like that particular formula for them, but we'll see. I mean, maybe it works. Maybe Clifford's able to hit them some big throws, and they do have great receivers, but that's a very interesting style clash, in my opinion, because Penn State, they really cannot run the football.
Michigan has allowed just 298 yards overall defensively. That's per game. In this day and age, there's about 8 teams that have allowed less than 300 yards a game. They're one of them. And I did not know the stat about the passing touchdowns. 18 touchdowns. They've allowed 18 touchdowns. I got to look into that passing. That's silly. I
want to say that's right. If I'm wrong about that, they've only given up 1 or 2, but I mean, they don't give up a lot of passing touchdowns. So again, I mean, Penn State's, I guess the goal, the theory is you're just going to roll out there with Dotson and Washington and your other receivers, and you have to make plays. You have to win your matchup and make plays and make some tough catches, I guess, because you're not running the football against Michigan.
That's coming up today with Greg Pickle. On3.com covers Penn State today at around 4:15. Also, we're going to hear from K.J. Morton, former Baylor corner. Those of you who have followed him for about a decade remember he and Joe Williams came in from junior colleges, and they made an impact. Now, they struggled back then early on, but they also started to make a difference and got a few stops and had huge plays against teams like Texas and Oklahoma. And K.J. Morton's known for one of the most fierce blow-up hits in college football ever against Sterling Shepard in an Oklahoma game in 2013. I interview him about that. That would be overturned most likely in this day and age of targeting. But his thoughts about how Baylor was able to beat OU in 2011 and 2013 and what that meant back then, and even as he watched it. He gave me a little nugget. Chancey Stuckey, while KJ was growing up, Chancey Stuckey was a star quarterback at Northside High School in Warner Robins, Georgia. And that's the same school that K.J. Morton attended when he was younger. And he talked about Chancey Stuckey might have been the most dynamic player he ever saw growing up at his, high school in Northside in Georgia.
And that's the Baylor receivers coach, for those who don't know who just Chancey Stuckey is. But, yeah, that'll be great to hear from K.J. I still remember that Sterling Shepard hit like it was yesterday. I can already hear an Oklahoma fan and miles away screaming about that hit still to this day. They were very upset by that, but it was what it was, and that was a time period when Baylor was very much in, OU's face and straight up beating them for a couple of years. And I wonder what would have happened with that rivalry had the Brow stuff not happened, because he had their number there, and right towards the end before all hell broke loose and he got fired. But they had started to change that rivalry a little bit, and then obviously mass coaching change. Rule gets the job in his first year with a team that would end up going 1-11, took OU to the brink, and the big Taylor Young hit in that game and on Baker Mayfield. And they've played them very tough. They played them very close. 2 years ago, those matchups they had, the one for the Big 12 title, it seems like when they play, it comes down to a couple of plays at the end, and Oklahoma always seems to make those.
Last year, I mean, they gave Oklahoma hell last year. Okay, when we come back, Max Olson, theathletic.com, excuse me, his thoughts about the college football weekend. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
BetUS.com. It's a great time for sports betting. Almost everything overlaps. The only thing we don't have going on right now is baseball. But right now, college basketball, the NBA, college football, the NFL, the NHL, boxing, UFC, golf, all of that's going on right now. You can bet on all of it at BetUS.com, and you can get some great deals with our promo codes Sikkim125. That's a 125% bonus on cash, or Sikkim200 200% bonus on crypto. That's Sikkim125 and Sikkim200. Go to betus.com today and use promo code Sikkim125 or Sikkim200.
When it comes to me and my money, I know the way it should be. I need a partner I can count on. That's Genco and me.
Refinance your vehicle today at Genco with rates as low as 1.69% for 48 months and have 90 days of no payments. Refinancing can lower your payment, so you pay less for your car. Apply online and get an additional 0.1% off our already low rate. Thank you, Genco. And don't forget, your vote counts. Vote today for your local school to win $1,500 with Genco's School Spirit Competition. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org.
Annual percentage rate subject to change without notice. Subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. NCUA Equal Housing Lender.
They're people I trust. They treat me like family. My money, my future, my credit union. Genco.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs. Even offering financing if that's needed, everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
It's the Black Friday sales event going on now. Come see the beautiful, elegant third-row seat Jeep Grand Cherokee L in stock at Allen Samuels. The 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo or Limited has total values of $3,500 or 0% for 72 months going on now and no payments for 90 days. First responders get an extra $500 cash. Allen Samuels, located at 201 West Loop 340 in Waco.
Come by. Let's be friends.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Max Olson of The Athletic. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
All right, here we go. Max Olson, theathletic.com, joins us, Sikkim 365 Radio. It's been yet another eventful week in college football with the second week of the standings, coaching changes, Texas Tech with Joey McGuire, Billy Napier. I noticed a story on the athletic.com about a rising star, and maybe he's on LSU's radar. Max, thanks for your time. What has been, in your opinion, this busy week, the biggest story so far this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, at least in our neck of the woods, probably Joey McGuire and Texas Tech wrapping up that search in just 2 weeks and hiring a guy that certainly we can all get behind here at Texas Tech. I mean, it's I've known Joey for a long time, going back to the Cedar Hill days, and was really happy for him. And you know, a lot of times, guys like him, you know, there is just a certain ladder when it comes to you know, these head jobs at the college level, and you know, a lot of people kind of assume a guy like Joey McGuire, you know, needs to go put in 2, 3, 4 years at you know, one of these jobs that might open like North Texas or Texas State or whatever, and try and win there, and then maybe a school like Texas Tech will look at you. I'm glad that Kirby Hocutt and their search committee gave him an interview and took him seriously, and obviously based on the press conference, you can imagine how the job interview probably went. So you know, really cool to see that happen, and you know, I think that makes things in this conference a lot more fun.
Max, taking let's all pretend for a second like we don't all like Joey McGuire a lot and respect him immensely. What do you think of him leaving mid-season, or not mid-season, but you know, practically mid-season? There's a month to go, you know, and leaving a team in the conference and going and joining another, and they're going to play here in a couple of weeks. And I mean, just that entire situation. I saw Lincoln Riley get asked about it, and he just laughed because it was comical to him, just the thought of a guy leaving his staff and going and coaching at, let's say, you know, TCU, and they play each other in 2 weeks. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be something that we see that's very common. I think I definitely understand the pros for Texas Tech in terms of getting a head start here with several weeks left in November in terms of building a staff, or at least getting commitments from people to join your staff and getting commitments for your recruiting class and all that. I think it is taking this approach, being this aggressive like Texas Tech was. I think it is limiting in terms of who you can hire. I mean, I think honestly, if Texas Tech had decided that Alex Grinch was their guy, he probably has to say no, or at least say, you know, I can't do this until, you know, the Big 12 title game's over or whatever it is for them, right? So I think, and you can't hire a sitting head coach that way. Like, you can hire, like, as we've seen with you know, Georgia Southern and UConn, you can hire a guy who's out of coaching, but it really limits your you know, ability to hire a head coach or even a coordinator if you're trying to get this thing done in November. So for that reason, I don't think we'll see a lot of people kind of copy that. But yeah, hiring someone when you haven't played them yet is certainly a unique part of this. Can't fault Joey for doing it. And you know, I'm sure Dave Aranda has you know, can fill in that role very easily. But yeah, I it's something I wouldn't expect to see going forward because, like I said, I think that really makes for a much smaller pool of coaches you can even hire.
Max, there's, you know, a numerous amount of coaches on the hot seat or guys who have moved off. You know, we talked about Gary Patterson last week. You know, Deion Sanders might be a candidate for that job. Dan Mullen fired assistants. Scott Frost fired assistants. Do you think that maybe some guys like, well, Frost is safe, but Mullen might be safe because there's too many coaches in the water right now, and Florida might not be able to get the kind of caliber coach they want, or is he getting hotter by the week?
I'm sorry, did you say Deion Sanders is a candidate for TCU?
Yeah.
If Zach Evans
really?
has a
Seriously?
If Zach Evans has
Seriously,
a say,
guys?
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Okay. Yeah, I think the Florida one is interesting because certainly during that loss to South Carolina, you're like, ooh, this is one of those that might change the calculation there a little bit. Not surprised that they moved on from Todd Grantham. I think that's one of those things that you have to do because it's just gotten so bad, and the fans and their players even seems like had kind of turned on that situation. I don't know. You know, there's just not that many tough games left on Florida's schedule, so I think maybe Mullen can survive this, but certainly, you know, it's been a pretty horrible year for him, and I wouldn't be that shocked if they made a change if there was somebody out there they wanted to hire. And what a fall from grace that would be, considering where they were a year ago, and you know, as close as they came to beating Alabama and you know, playing in a New Year's Six Bowl and all that. You know, I think that, yeah, making some of these you know, Frost is safe for now. You know, but between that and Washington, you've got some pretty interesting situations here where there's certainly coaches feeling a lot of pressure and trying to relieve some of that pressure by you know, putting the blame on coaches and firing them.
Yeah, does it just kick the can down the road, or do you feel like, obviously Frost understood what he was facing, no question. He took less. His buyout's less. There's incentives involved. I honestly, and you and I both, Max, we like them, and we know how frustrating they've been for a decade. I kind of like it. It's something different. Now, whether it works in 12 months, I don't know. But it says something about how much he wants to stay there, even if it's been a wreck for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think pretty smart on Trev Albert's part to, kind of appreciate the situation and the leverage here and go to Scott Frost the same way that Ward Manuel did with Jim Harbaugh and say, look, we got to renegotiate this deal because, we feel like you're not delivering on it and we got to change the terms of this because Scott Frost having a $20 million buyout is maybe the biggest reason why they didn't make a change. And so they were able to knock that down to $7.5 million if they fire him at the end of next year. And I think that's a really important move that they made there. Now, is this going to, you say kick the can down the road? I mean, yeah, I think that's entirely possible. I'm not sure this is going to work for Nebraska. It'll be interesting to see who they go with for OC there. I've heard Jake Pete's name a lot for that, but who knows what direction that search goes in. And, I just don't, a lot of times people will give the coach an extra year because they feel like, you know what, we're doing things the right way and we're really set up to have a lot of players back and be pretty good next year. That's not the case in Nebraska. I don't think they're going to be very good next year. They're going to have to take a ton of players out of the portal. You got to hire 4 new coaches. You probably have to take a quarterback out of the portal too. I have no idea how good Nebraska's going to be. I'm not sure that you should expect more than 6 wins from them next year. So it's entirely possible that they're making that change at the end of next year, but clearly they want to give the guy another chance and they desperately want it to work with Scott Frost.
Max got a handful of top 25 matchups this weekend. One of those going to be happening less than a mile away from where we're sitting right now, McLean Stadium, Baylor and Oklahoma. Oklahoma obviously unbeaten. Baylor coming off that tough loss to TCU. Your thoughts on that game tomorrow?
Yeah, can't wait to see it. One of these games that really sets the tone here for the Big 12 race, and I think there's probably a lot of people nationally that are going to be watching that game very closely because clearly there's a lot of skepticism about Oklahoma, and this is one of those games when they have to put it all together and really show up and play really well. And because I think we've seen Baylor has played a bunch of these games so far this year and has played really well in them. They really have. So, I know last week was disappointing against TCU, but I really think this is going to be one of the best Big 12 games of the year because I think Baylor can match up with them pretty well. Certainly, if they can get Caleb Williams to make some freshman mistakes, I think it's going to be a really close game and potentially a winnable game here. But man, this is one of those games where Oklahoma has to impress. They really do, and the playoff ranking stuff doesn't really matter. If they win the Big 12, they know and win out, they know they're going to be in. But man, this is a really defining moment here for the Sooners to just prove how good they are.
Max Olson, theathletic.com on Sikkim 365 Radio. Again, usually on Thursdays at 4, joining us today on the eve of. Do you think Caleb Williams can win the Heisman Trophy?
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's how I would vote. I mean, I have no idea how that's looking, but like, guys, we do a weekly Heisman straw poll among our staff on The Athletic every week, and I think we put that up on Tuesdays, and it is hard. And so we put in 3 names each week, and it is really hard to do that on a week to week basis right now. Mm-hmm. There's just truly not a guy that you have to say, man, that's the front runner, no debate, that's the winner. I think it's really, really wide open here. And that's exciting. I think it's going to be cool to see how this all finishes out. But, you can't really say as great as guys like Kenneth Walker or Matt Corral or Jordan Davis or whoever else you want to put up there, as great as they've been, over 9-10 games here. There's just not one guy I think we can all agree on has been the guy. So, would voters have a problem with how few games Caleb Williams played? Yeah, probably. I'm sure there's some people that sort of wouldn't vote for him out of principle, but the opportunity is absolutely there to go put up monster numbers over November and get to New York.
Max, obviously don't have time to talk about every game. So of the 3 other top 25 games, just pick which one, is of interest and you can riff on it if you want. But NC State, Wake Forest, you got 16 versus 12. You got A&M Ole Miss, 11 versus 15. And then you got Purdue, Ohio State, 19 versus 4. Which one of those entices you the most?
I think that man, I think Ohio State Purdue is going to be pretty fun. As much as I think A&M Ole Miss is definitely a big deal, and that's one game they're going to. And man, I think the way you saw A&M's defense play last week, that chess match there of Kiffin versus Elko, I think is going to be really terrific to watch. But man, I had a feeling that Purdue was going to put up a fight against Michigan State. And that line was just a little bit too close. It told you that somebody thinks, Vegas thinks that one had a chance to be upset potential. And man, Purdue was phenomenal last week. And I went to the game in Lincoln and watched Ohio State and came away I just don't think they're that scary of a team this year. So I'm not saying Purdue will win this week, but I do think Ohio State's going to lose one of these games in November. They've got a really tough slate ahead. And that one I think I'm probably most interested in watching just to see, can they start to put it together?
Do you sleep with your stop rate stats?
What do you mean?
No, you know that defensive stop rate.
There's a double question there. Do you sleep with your stop rate stats?
I was having fun with you. I love that.
Like I just keep my laptop in my bed?
Yeah, I thought you would have a folder with all those. I love them, man, because again, there's always these new stats that pop up, and I'm not saying that's a new one, but I enjoy that because it'll kind of tell the story of some people. Obviously, Georgia, A&M up close. Clemson's still high. That's not been their problem. Nebraska's 20 or 22nd. That's not been their problem. I love that stat. I really do. Instead of just total
I appreciate
defense.
it. I appreciate that. And in 2017, I was an idiot, and on Sundays I would do that all by hand. I would just go through every box score and count every drive chart and stuff. And it took me my entire Sunday. So finally, we got around to actually paying for a stat service that lets you, click a button and get all that in about half a second there. So that is very helpful. But yeah, no, we've been doing stop rate at the Athletic, since 2017, and I appreciate you mentioning that. There are only about a dozen people who appreciate it, so I'm glad to hear you might be one.
I'm one of them, but again, I'm, me. Thanks, Max. Appreciate it. We'll have plenty to talk about. Guys. Max Olson, theathletic.com today. With us on Sick on 365 Radio, 365 Sports. We'll come back. Grayson Grunhafer was talking about a transfer who could be on campus this weekend for Baylor as they host Oklahoma. They had a great home schedule. I mean, think about it. Brigham Young at home, Iowa State at home, Texas at home, Oklahoma at home. And now all of a sudden the impending game with Texas Tech in 3 weeks. So Grayson joins us next. Sick on 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. I forgot who it was. I wish I could remember. They said, Smokey, can you get Dr. Petty to help the University of Texas? Because they seem to run out of gas and have no stamina in the second half. Stop. But maybe that's a problem. I don't know. Dr. Kent Petty can help you if you have had issues with stamina. Your sex drive's not the same. Your energy's not the same. You don't sleep the same. If there's just something wrong. And yeah, it's not going to be for someone 15 or 20, but as you get older, your testosterone levels can drop. 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, and some of what I've mentioned already. And so what he can do is get you involved, get your lab work, get the results, see how much your testosterone, where it is, what's the number, and if it's too low, he can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels so you can be the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, and perhaps you used to be. Petty Clinic, lowt.com.
It's Baylor football season, and as always, Berg Colgin Ford supports the green and gold. Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Berg Colgin Ford. It's time for team celebrations and BU touchdowns. Berg Colgin Ford is your home team when it comes to trucks and tailgates. Ford has the perfect truck for you to host a top-ranked tailgate party. Here's to a winning season for our hometown Bears. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Buying made simple at BK Ford. Sick 'em Bears.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
So recently, a northern transplant in our fair city came in to pick up outfitters for the first time, and he was starstruck. He told us that truck accessories were not needed in Illinois. I know, pick your jaw up off the ground. An entire state full of trucks driving around completely nude. Then he said he saw the light when he moved to Texas and found that in Texas, truck accessories were a necessity. I don't know about a necessity, but Texans have a whole different attitude about their trucks, and they give them their rightful place as a family member. I mean, what exactly do you use your truck for if you're not going to put anything on it? All this is a warning for the good people of Central Texas to stay diligent. Don't let your truck look like it came from up north. Put something on that truck, for goodness sakes. A bumper, a lift kit, some running boards. At Pickup Outfitters, we know what your truck needs. So come and see us at 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or check us out on the web at createacommotion.com.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of Sikkim365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
All right, here we go. This 3 o'clock hour winding down. Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com. My goodness, Grayson has been a busy young man. And on top of that, then he's had to kind of check to see what the pulse was of commitments in December, those who will sign the early signing period, and did any of the coaching changes affect how they feel. I read some of those quotes, Grayson, in the premium section. There were a couple like on the fence. What are your thoughts about, of all of them, no matter the class of 23 with Isaiah Crawford, don't worry about that right now, but among the commits, do you see any of them that have wobbled even more since?
Yeah, I think right now, obviously Joey and James left, and both of them built really good relationships with a lot of the recruits in the class, especially, James Blanchard is one of those guys who, a lot of the way the Baylor recruiting process works is that it a lot of times starts with the recruiting guys. And then it goes from the recruiting guys to the position coaches, and then those relationships are formed. Area recruiter also plays a role in that. But yeah, a lot of the guys in the class had good relationships with Joey and James. But I would say for the most part right now, Baylor's done a really nice job of obviously continuing to build those relationships with the players, with the recruits, and the recruits also have good relationships with their position coach. And so a lot of those guys have other relationships other than, whether it's Joey or James in their recruitment. And I think that helps them. And also, you talk about believing in a coach, and I think they believe in what Dave Aranda is building at Baylor. And I think for that reason, Baylor's been able to kind of hold on to all of their commitments, at least at the moment. I know Isaiah Crawford in the 2023 class decommitted, but again, I think Baylor's still going to be in on him. And just because he decommitted, I don't think that necessarily means, he's going to Tech. I don't think it means that at all. I just think he's going to take his time more so in his recruitment. But with the 2022 class, it seems like Baylor's done a nice job of kind of rebounding and making sure that all those recruits know how wanted they are by this Baylor staff and how much of a priority they are.
Isn't it also a benefit that Baylor is not the one hiring a new coach right now? So while they might lose a good recruiter in Joey McGuire, they're not the one who's hiring a new coach. So that the burden of proof is not on them to show that they can be successful.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Dave Aranda's already proven that, this season, how quickly he could turn around this Baylor program. And, I mean, if you look at the results on the field, Baylor's been really good this year. And because of that success, I think there's kind of a vision that you can sell. Obviously, when you're a new coach, you can also sell a similar vision because you can say, this is what we want to be. This is where we're going to, who we're going to try to become. But with Dave Aranda, there's actually, wins to back that up. And obviously a big game this weekend that they're going to continue to try to sell that message to a lot of the visitors that they have coming in. And it's an extensive list. I mean, so this Baylor staff has never stopped recruiting. I know they lost two big parts of their recruiting effort, but this is a team recruiting effort. All of their coaches go out and recruit. They have a great recruiting staff with Vince Ginta, Brian Nance, Aaron Hunt. They have a lot of guys that recruit really, really well, and that process has not stopped.
Grayson, it's not going to be built here for a little while, but how much of a difference do you think having that football ops building, which is clearly, past due, everybody else in the Big 12 pretty much has one, and the ones coming in are in the process of those who don't have one or building ones up or fundraising. So now that Baylor's, getting back to upgrading facilities, how much do you think something like that still plays into a recruit's way of thinking, as part of the various things that do in this day and age?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that they can sell as a part of the vision. You know what I mean? It's something that they're continuing to build towards and something that they're going to add. And, obviously fancy new things are always going to be really cool. And I think that they're definitely going to show that to recruits and show kind of, the new weight room and the new facility that they're going to have with the offices and, extending the football field to 100 yards. There's a lot of really cool things that they're working on. And, yeah, they're going to use that. I don't know that it's, going to be the biggest selling point. I personally think that ops building, the weight room's great, but I think that is really the biggest impact is just on the coaching staff. The amount of room that they'll have and the amount of more work that I feel like they'll be able to get done there. And, the weight room's cool too, but I do think on the coaching side, it probably plays a bigger part than the recruiting side. But that's just my opinion on that.
Yeah, well, part of the reason why I ask is because there was a time in recruiting not that long ago when it seemed like uniforms and facilities were the driving factor sometimes and guys making decisions, and it doesn't seem like it's that way anymore. It seems like...
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're talking about there because, there was a moment in there where it was like all about facilities, and I think it definitely does matter to an extent. I think, the stadium is obviously a big part of it, and the weight room as well. That's where you're going to spend most of your time. Baylor already has hit a home run with the bank. I think they've really gotten to the point where, I think every facility is so great that it's kind of one of those things where, even adding another one is just kind of a cherry on top. So, I guess, that is one way of looking at it. But, I think the way that Baylor's gone through it, it's kind of made those changes less impactful because they haven't had to build a new stadium in the last year or haven't had to build a new, practice field in the last year. Those things matter. When a recruit shows up on campus, they want to see new things. But until it's built, it's one of those things where it's kind of more of a vision at this very moment.
All right, Grayson. So we know the popularity of Joey, although now Baylor fans are they're a little bit concerned about some of what he's done, and then James is gone, and he was a very popular figure as well. But how much do you feel that coaching staff is there for a reason? And that personnel department, or whatever you want to call it, with Ginta and others, they're there for a reason. There's people in there that can help and make decisions, and have been. It's not just been a two-man show. Do you feel like there's any kind of a little bit of, okay, people are worried about this? Not that they're, well, maybe they are. We got this. We're fine. In fact, let's just double down and make sure we even get more than what we were going to get.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have kind of made this false rationalization where they're saying that, everything was done by just Joey and James. And I think that becomes magnified just because they left. So everyone's kind of like, oh my gosh, like the impact, what's this going to do? But I think it's important to remember that this staff does a really good job of divvying out, responsibilities. So whether it's an area coach or the position coach, those guys are building those relationships, those key relationships on the recruiting trail. And then you go to obviously the recruiting staff where you're talking about, Brian Nance and Aaron Hunt and Vince Ginta, guys who have built great relationships as well. So yeah, it definitely has not been a two-man show. And I do think that this is one of those moments where I think it's on both sides, to be honest, where they both have something to prove, whether it's James and Joey at Tech or, the Baylor coaches just saying, yes, they were great parts of our staff. We loved having them. They did their work, obviously, and they've helped us get to this point. But we have great guys in our offices and then, our staff that can come in and completely do the same thing and contribute in that way and keep this engine going. And I think you're going to see that. And I do think this Baylor staff is so well organized and so good at building relationships, especially the staff in general. They just do such a good job building these relationships. And I do think that Baylor will be able to overcome this and add, probably some more quality guys to their staff.
Thank you, Grayson. Your thoughts about
your thoughts about Oklahoma, Grayson?
Yeah, I'm excited about this game, guys. I think it's going to be a real test for both sides. The two things that I looked at coming into this game, and kind of the reason I actually do think Baylor will win this game, I think it'll be really close. But Oklahoma's opponent's record, 31-51. They just have not really played anyone that I think is even close to the caliber as Baylor, whereas the Bears obviously have already played Iowa State, BYU, and Oklahoma State. And also Baylor's a different team at home than they are on the road. And I just have a feeling that this is going to be a great bounce back spot for the Bears. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think Baylor's a better football team than Oklahoma, but I think they can be on one day, especially in McLean Stadium, where we've seen Baylor, really play Oklahoma tough, even when they didn't have the better football team. So I think the Bears are going to win this weekend, but I think it's going to be a great one and a great test. And I'm interested to see, guys, the secondary got beat up a little bit by Chandler Morris, and I'm curious if they come out and really show something against Caleb Williams, who obviously is a fantastic quarterback for Oklahoma. So it's going to be really exciting. I think Dave Rand is going to have to come up with a great game plan, but I think they can do it, and I think they're going to get the job done.
Thank you, Grayson. Appreciate it. There are predictions, a thread in the premium section, Grayson's prediction, all of our predictions, again, others on staff and their predictions. Armstrong threw his out there, had Oklahoma and Baylor in a shootout with Baylor winning at a high score.
I took Oklahoma. I'll go and just say it. You can read everybody's on the premium section. But, yeah, I took Oklahoma in a one-score game, and I'll tell you, I struggled over it because I've had Oklahoma locked into my head for a while now, looking at the season schedule ahead of time and going okay, win, loss, win, a pretty balanced team. So, yeah, if they can limit, some of what ailed them in Fort Worth, that's the question. Can they do that? If they can, then this should be one heck of a game for both sides. But if they can't, then, yeah, it could be a long day like last Saturday was.
One note about, I agree. I did struggle with it, but Oklahoma's won all these championships because they just find a way. Doesn't mean they will win every one. Doesn't mean that they're unbeatable. They surely, so far, they're not unbeatable, but they haven't been beaten. And so they always find a way. They did twice in 19 against a really damn good Baylor team. By the way, Oklahoma State tomorrow at home against TCU. Donnie Hand, our Oklahoma State buddy. Oklahoma State's unveiling a statue outside the greatest college football running back of all time in Barry Sanders. Good for them.
Yeah.
Outside of T-Boone-Pickens Stadium.
Didn't know they didn't have one already, Barry Sanders. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea and should definitely be something that was taken care of and done. I mean, you got the greatest football player arguably of all time. Yeah, put a statue up, and obviously he's not somebody – it's not like you got a sitting head coach like in Fort Worth who's got a statue up or – it's like OJ at USC or something. You're like, uh-oh. I think you feel pretty good about Barry Sanders at this point.
Yeah. You know what? I think the Barry Sanders statue, they should have some sort of like reflective technology where if you look at it one way, it moves.
Yeah,
like
spins.
So it spins.
It might even without that, it might.
Or here's the deal. When you go to take a picture with it, it's on a track. And like right when you click, it moves.
They had Barry Sanders. They had Thurman Thomas. They had Hartley Dykes back in the day. They were really, really good. I think that 83 team or 82 team, one of those two teams, when Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State